What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to some more Hammer releases. Today, I'm doing a double review of two films that I have seen recently. One of them was a rewatch and one was a first-time watch. The Stranglers of Bombay and The Terror of the Tongs. And I've showed this before. This Icons of Adventure 4 classic movies on 2 discs collection from Columbia Pictures. I think I've reviewed the other 2 films before, The Pirates of Blood River and The Devil Ship Pirates. So, as many of you know, I'm a huge Hammer fan, and that includes even their non-horror output, which I've been getting more and more into, as I've seen, 99% of their horror films. There's not much, nowhere else to really go. But the great news is they're putting out all these new editions, the 4Ks of a lot of the older and sometimes even more obscure Hammer films. Of course, I did unbox that Monster, the Curse of Frankenstein set. I did show that on the channel. But, there's a lot of attention being paid to some of their lesser known films. And I've watched a few on streaming. The Snake Woman was one of them. So, a lot of these films I was not really aware of, especially when it comes to their non-horror output. For example, I had never known that they made a bunch of Robin Hood movies, so eager to check those out. And check out the Mondo Chelovic channel on YouTube. He's a huge Hammer fan. He's been showing off some of these newer 4K editions, and his shelves look fantastic. My Hammer collection is just like a mishmash. You got some DVDs and Blu-rays, some really recent nice releases, like those 3 Synapse releases I showed recently, the Curse of Frankenstein box set. Then I've got some public domain ones. I've got some VCI releases. Those would be the film noir films. Shout, one Anchor Bay double feature even. But his shelves look so nice. Wow, really, really something to see. So check out his channel. And let's get into it. The Stranglers of Bombay and The Terror of the Tongs. I believe these both came out like in the late 50s. Both very similar in a lot of ways. Number one, the running time, very short. Stranglers of Bombay is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and The Terror of the Tongs is even shorter than that. So here's a quick side question. Would a shorter runtime inhibit you from buying like a really nice release of a movie? I don't know. Does that 15 or 20 minutes or a half an hour to 45 minutes of less runtime, is that a deciding factor? I don't know. Sometimes I think that maybe you can get 2 films. Like for example, if you were going to put out these 2 films on 4K, they would pair nicely on the same release. Because of the short runtime. That's just a side question. So that's one thing. Number 2, the plots are very, very similar. You've got a cult in the Stranglers of Bombay, and then a criminal syndicate, the Tongs. That's what Tongs are. I learned about what Tongs are watching Kung Fu growing up. My dad had to explain it to me, because Kwai Chang Caine dealt with the Tongs in the Old West. And both are up to, criminal activities, and they're both trying to keep it secret, and they both do not suffer, I would say suffer fools, but they don't tolerate any disloyalty, let's put it that way, at all. And they're both very secretive. That's the second thing. The third thing is these are products of their time. These films would not be made today. 3 of these films on this set star Christopher Lee. So he plays Chun King in The Terror of the Tongs. Christopher Lee is not Chinese, as you may know. So yeah, Hammer, just like a lot of other studios back then, was not afraid to cast their Anglo actors in other roles. Michael Ripper playing a Japanese guard in one of their war movies. Christopher Lee in this movie. You've got, in The Terror of the Tongs, you've got Yvonne Monlaire, one of their Yvonnes, one of their very beautiful Yvonnes in their stable of actresses. She plays what they call in the trailer a half caste named Lee. So she's half Chinese. But they would not use that terminology today. So overall, these films are a little cringy by today's standards for sure. In The Stranglers of Bombay, they have likewise a mix of Indian and Anglo actors playing the Indian parts. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. Also, let's go back to Terror of the Tongs. You also have Burt Kwok, best known as Kato from the Pink Panther movies. He was also in Curse of the Fly. And just like in that film, he was a British citizen. He was Chinese, of course, British citizen born in the United Kingdom. and then went back to China for a while, was raised there, and then came back and made a lot of films in the United Kingdom. But just like in Curse of the Fly, where his character's wife is played by an Anglo actor, here he's surrounded by other actors, playing the part of the Tong parts. British actors playing Chinese characters, essentially. So just be warned about that. I mean, I will say that I don't think any animals were harmed in the making of this, even though in Stranglers of Bombay, you do have a lot of cobra action. There's one scene where I think they wanted the cobra to come down the hill, and I don't think it was a real cobra. It looked like it was maybe being pulled by a string, but the rest of the cobra scenes look pretty good. So there's that. So let's get to the plots of these real quick. With the Stranglers of Bombay, you have in the British East India Company, who discovers this cult. They call it the cult of Kali, the Thuggee cult of Kali, Thuggee, or maybe Thuggee. I'm pretty sure this is where the word thug came from. That would be my guess. But they're basically a cult that is just robbing all of these merchants left and right. And if anybody discovers who they are, they get eliminated rather quickly. They have eyes and ears all over the place out on the streets. And in both films, you have other people like merchants and so forth that are against them, almost form like a counter group that will cooperate with law enforcement because they're just so fed up of being robbed and victimized. And they kill with a very common item of clothing. So there's a scene where someone picks one of these things up. I won't tell you what it is, and he just doesn't really think anything of it. I should mention there is another film, a 1988 film directed by Nicholas Meyer, starring Pierce Brosnan, called The Deceivers, where they go into this in a little more detail, and the way that they depict that is a little bit differently, but it's still the same article of clothing. So essentially, this one officer of the British East India Corps or Company, played by Guy Rolfe, who's kind of played as an eccentric type guy who frustrates his superiors a little bit, he really comes to believe that this is a wide-ranging conspiracy. Okay, because you got all these merchants coming to the company saying, we're getting robbed blind here. We're talking about like local Indian merchants. And it's kind of like in the Old West when people were transporting things on stagecoaches and they're being robbed, right? So, and there's another guy in charge who just kind of like laughs it off. So I guess just some common robbers here and there. And that's pretty much what happens. You meet some people on the street, because he's got people on the street. He'll talk to the people on the street. He's not as snobbish, He'll have relationships with street vendors and beggars and things, and he'll talk to them. So they're coming to him saying, hey, my uncle's gone. My son is gone. What's going on here? And he's asking all these questions, and nobody really cares, So he's a little bit different that way. Eventually, they come to realize that he's right, and they have to stop this cult. And I don't know. I think that possibly Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom took some inspiration from this film. You have some characters who look like mild-mannered businessmen in the daytime, but at night they're sacrificing people on this cult. So even though this cult is ruthless, they'll blind you, they'll bury you alive, they'll do all kinds of things. There is a scene where one of their techniques goes awry, and it has to do with the cobra. If any of you remember the cartoon Rikki Tikki Tavi, maybe you can figure that out. But it's funny, but so then they just allow the guy to live. Like their prescribed method of execution doesn't work. So, they actually sort of honor that and let the guy go. But every other time they're absolutely ruthless. And if there's a heartbreaking scene where somebody is told to kill some poor schmuck that they've kidnapped, and it's a family member. So the British officer is played by Guy Rolfe, by the way, Captain Harry Lewis. And you may know him from a few Full Moon films. He took over the role of Toulon in the Puppet Master films. And of course, he was also in the film Dolls. So that's Guy Rolfe. So that's the Stranglers of Bombay. Pretty entertaining film overall. And then you have The Terror of the Tongs, where you have Christopher Lee in charge of this Tong in Hong Kong. And they're operating around the shipyards and everything, doing all kinds of smuggling. And essentially what happens is somebody gets hold of a list of the members of this Tong, and they smuggle it in a children's book to somebody, and somebody gets killed because of it. And then you have This captain, you have this ship captain named Captain Jackson Saleh, played by Jeffrey Toone. He's sort of the hero of the story who pieces this together. And along with the character of Lee, played by Yvonne Monlaire, and a few other sympathetic people, they try to take down this cult, who will kill by any means necessary. And in one of the films, I won't even tell you which, just to show you how deep the conspiracy or the membership in these groups can go, somebody is injured and they call a doctor. And then the doctor suddenly leaves and they look down and the guy's got a knife sticking out of him. You can't even trust like the doctors. I mean, they could be in on it too. So it does kind of maintain some suspense all the way through. It's pretty good. Some of the cringiness notwithstanding. So what are your thoughts about the Stranglers of Bombay or the Terror of the Tongs? Have you seen either one of those? Have you been picking up any of the newer Hammer releases? Let me know in the comments below and come back again for some more Hammer reviews. Thanks.